Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. So as mentioned, and I know it's weird to be a little specific, today I'm here as Andrew Knack, regular guy. I have another job that I take part in at other times, but we have to separate in our regular roles any type of event. So I wanted to come here today because I want to talk a little bit about political parties, Bill 20. We got a lot going on in this province, in the country, in the world. And so something that might have got missed last year was Bill 20. Who knows, when I say Bill 20, how many of you are following that discussion? I see a few hands. Yeah, the boos are probably fair in that case. And so if you haven't been following Bill 20, I'm just gonna take this out a little bit so we can get a little closer here. I want to tell you a little bit about this and why it matters and why you should care. And it's always hard to follow the Raging Grannies, by the way. I feel like I'm not the most I'm not the guy that gets everyone really excited. I'm here to provide you depressing facts about Bill 20, but will hopefully then motivate you to get more involved. So Bill 20 was really a piece of legislation that got approved last year in May against the will of most Albertans. The provincial government had been engaging Albertans, asking people, do you want things like political parties in your local elections? No. And you're like the 70% of Albertans who said loud and clear, no, we don't want that. They asked the question, do you want corporate and union donations to come back, dark money to come back into local elections? No. And you're like about the 70% of Albertans who said, no, we don't want that. And yet, even though Albertans had been loud and clear, including in the provincial government's own survey, they pushed ahead with it. So what we're going to see now in this next municipal election in October 2025 is the introduction of political parties. We're going to see political parties running candidates. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to see the ability for these parties to raise double the amount that somebody that wants to run independently can. So you're going to see more money seeping into our elections. And I don't think we have to look much further than the last 3 weeks about what's been happening and think, do we really want folks that have corporations being able to donate and influence our local elections? No, right? Because when you have that, you have the potential of things like what we're seeing in the last few weeks, right? And so we need to know that, we need to be aware of that, because this is going to be a municipal election unlike anything we've ever seen before. And I'm really worried about it, and I know Albertans have been really worried about it and have been speaking up. And it's not just individual Albertans, we've been hearing from municipal leaders across this province who have spoken up from across the ideological spectrum. I think that's what I love so much about how so many people have been vocal. It doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. I've had people on the right wing, in the center, on the left, all say, we want to have that independence. And here's the example of why I think it matters. When that bill was being debated, because I mentioned I have another job that I spend a lot of time focusing on local issues, so I don't spend as much time on the day-to-day about what's going on right here. We got some great people here in the audience and great people here in the crowds who are following each and every day. But when that piece of legislation went into the legislature for debate, this is what I noticed and what really worries me about why this is going to be following into municipal elections. So Albertans have been saying loud and clear, we don't want this, we don't want this, we don't want this. When it came into the legislature to get debated, how many people do you think from the governing party spoke up against that legislation, even though 70%? Yeah, that was a good guess. Yes, zero, right? Yeah, that's surprising, right? And yeah, that's a really interesting point, because what I found is that, in city halls across this province, people go to work every day, councillors go to work every day, and they truly go into their chambers with an open mind. They genuinely want to hear different perspectives. They want to understand different ways of thinking, and then they want to use that to make their decisions. But what we saw in there, I watched every single minute of that. Now I have so much appreciation for you, Janice, sitting through that, because I watched that whole debate for a month. Every minute of it, every second of it, I watched it. And what I heard is that day after day when we had a chance to debate, of course recognizing that there was legislation put forward, a motion passed to limit how much debate could happen on something as fundamental as changing our local democracy. So in the limited amount of time that we had to debate such an important piece of legislation, what I saw at every moment was members of the opposition standing up, asking questions of the government. Why are they bringing this forward? Bringing forward reasonable solutions of how to make it better. Standing up and speaking to the things that didn't make sense. And every time they finished, nobody from the opposing side spoke up. Nobody stood up. And I knew there were people from the governing party who didn't support that legislation, because I heard it from them. And yet, when they were in there debating one of the most foundational changes to local democracy that we've seen in probably our lifetime, not a person could speak up against it. Why? Because the party told them how to vote. They had no choice. Right? No ability to stand up and say, you know what, Albertans haven't been asking for this, so we're going to say no. And what we saw is it got passed from every single member of the governing party. Nobody even willing to speak up as to why they supported it. Why? Because we know that many of them didn't support it. And so I raised that example because I watched that and I thought about, do we want that in our local democracy? No. We want people who are actually open to hearing different ideas, different perspectives. So that is a major change. We're going to see, we already have at least 2 groups that have announced that they're going to be running political parties in the next municipal election. And we need to stand up against that. Because again, when we have that system, I don't think anyone's watching what's happening right now in the legislature, and I'd even argue a little bit of what's going on federally sometimes in Parliament, and saying, we want that system in our city halls. We don't need it. So make sure, because we're going to be going through this, right? People are already announced locally, people are already knocking on doors. You're going to be running into people who are going to be coming to you asking for your support, and you need to be asking them about what they're doing. Are they running as part of a political party? Because if they are, you need to think real carefully about whether they deserve your support. Because are they going to be voting in your best interest? Or are they going to be voting based off what the party's told them to do?
We don't need fascists in the municipal government.
And we'll take this last piece, which is that, because I could go on and spend hours talking about this, but you need to hear more motivational speakers up here other than me. But I want you to think about one more piece, which is that with what changes we're going through right now, there's going to be a lot of dark money coming into this. Right now, the rules are, and again, Albertans have said loud and clear for years that anyone running for local elections should disclose who has donated to their campaigns before the vote. Yes. And I think that's fair. In fact, many of us, including myself, have been doing that since the 2010 election, making sure that before anyone would cast their ballot, they would know who has contributed to the campaign so that they know who's involved, right? And I think that's something that we should expect of everyone. It's something Albertans have been asking for over and over and over again. And yet, even with all of the changes that have been coming in, the vast majority of which Albertans didn't want, that change wasn't made. And now we're going to have even more people being able to contribute money, and we don't necessarily need to know who's donated until you vote. So what does that matter? What is your call to action in that? Again, you're going to be seeing candidates. You're going to be seeing people come to your door. You're going to be getting to talk to them at community events. And we need you to ask them, are you going to tell us who has donated to your campaign before I go cast my ballot? Challenge them. Challenge them. Because if each of you put pressure on them and ask that question over and over again and talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your neighbors, make sure that those questions are getting asked, then people have to do it. And if they are unwilling to do it, then I think that sends an entirely different message that we all need to be very well aware of. If somebody isn't willing to tell you who is giving them money before you go to vote, make sure everyone knows that. Make sure they know that before they go vote. That's so important to making sure we strengthen our local democracy here. And I'll just close with this, which is that You know, I've been fortunate in my other job to understand the benefit of and see the ability to affect change locally, and see the ability for one person to make a massive difference in how local democracy works. You know, I think even provincially and federally, there's some great individual work that happens, but I see it locally far, far more each and every day. And so I want everyone here to remember how much your individual voice can make a difference in this next local election. Sadly, we don't see great voter turnout locally. Now, I'm sure that's not going to be an issue for everyone here. I'm sure everyone here was already planning on voting locally, which is good. But you're only part of the 1/3 that typically votes in a municipal election. 2/3 of people don't go vote in the local elections normally. And we know that there is a movement right now. We've seen it province-wide. There are groups that are running to try to do things like, and there's one particular group that's worked to try to conservatize local councils.
Yes.
Right? They've been working to take over school boards. Right?
TBA.
And they've been hosting meetings and getting organized and being involved. So my last call to action to all of you is that you are here, you are already an active group, but please make sure you are talking about this with everyone you know, because those groups know how to organize, but so does everyone here. Everyone here knows the importance of speaking up, using your voice, and making a difference, and challenging that status quo, and making sure we realize, you know, I see that sign in the back there from somebody that has American-style politics in the right there, right? And we don't need that here. That is a broken system. It doesn't work. But we need you to be active. We need you to be talking about it. We need you to volunteer. We need you to speak up. We need you to donate. We need you to do all of those things to help make sure that local elections here in Edmonton, in the region, across this province, are going to be something that actually stands strong when we are seeing attacks on democracy in every other level. Let's make sure we hold firm locally, and your voices, your actions, your ability to take charge is going to be what makes the difference. So thank you for having me. Make sure you stay active. Let's get involved, and let's make sure in October 2025, local democracy stays strong. Thanks, everyone.